Hey, what's up guys? Nate here from Protoculture. Welcome back to Sonic Academy, and today's video is going to be filled with a healthy dose of cheese and 80s nostalgia. We're going to be checking out Emulation II Plus from UVI, their brand new instrument which runs inside of UVI Workstation or Falcon if you have Falcon on hand. We're going to dive in and check out everything that this can do. It's based on the Emulator I, 2, and 3, as well as a drum module, and then also a multi-setup which allows you to combine various instruments together to create sort of grooves and multi-patterns and layered sounds. Now, Emulator II Plus doesn't emulate the actual sampling. You can't sample your own stuff like you would in Arturia's version. However, you can do that in Falcon. If you are a Falcon user, you do have stuff like the Redux module, which will allow you to set up the emulation for your samples. What Emulation II Plus really focuses on is sounds that have actually been sampled through the real hardware units. So what UVI have done, they've given us a massive library of sampled sounds, both from the emulator factory presets or factory sample libraries, as well as a huge amount of additional content that they have actually run through the original hardware and then provided as multi-samples in this package. So we're going to be looking at it inside of UVI Workstation, as that's how most of you would experience this without Falcon. What you're going to be greeted with first is the selection menu over here. You'll see you have the Drumulation module, the Emulator I, 2, and 3. The UI for these is pretty much exactly the same, just graphically they look slightly different to differentiate between the different models. And then you've got the multi-section here. Let's dive in first. We're going to take a look at the drum module. Let's check out what you can do with this. So as I said, there is everything from the original samples right through to sampled 808s, 909s, and other experiments that they've done running other audio through these instruments. We'll load up a 80s pop kit to start off with. Let's go with Fears for Tears. And there you have the drum module UI up in front of us now. Now these can be played as a drum kit. Each one of these kit presets also comes with a groove. There's a sequencer in this as well, so if you hold down the C above that, so let's take a look at the controls that you can do here. There's a huge amount of kits available to you, and each one of these having its own sequence like that. We can take some of the more modern stuff as well, just to get a sort of idea of the range of sounds that you can get from this. Let's go for the lo-fi as well. Some classic 808 sounds. Cool. So you've got 8 samples that can be loaded into this. You can select through the samples here. There's a menu selection here that you can choose from each of the models as well. So you can select your samples from there. You have volume controls, drive controls as well. Each of these can be panned left and right. They can be pitched up and down. You also have high pass and low pass filters, decay for these, as well as 4 different effect sends, and this applies to all of the modules. You have 2 delays and 2 reverb sends. Your master also has a master drive, as well as some basic EQ. Let's take a look at the sequencer now as well. If we switch over from the edit mode, we can see we've got a sequence here. You have 2 different velocity amounts, sort of halfway, and then the full would be the full block like that, the X indicating a softer note. There's a couple of nice little presets in here. We can initialize that and get quite quick results from adding in some of the templates. Let's go with bass drum, for example. We'll go with, let's say, another template snare drum. We can randomize these as well. We'll randomize the events and randomize the velocity for these too. And in addition to that as well, you'll notice that you can actually change the divisions for these. So you can have these running at independently different signatures. We can go with, let's say, triplets, quarter triplets for that, which will slow it down significantly. We can run these ones at 30 seconds if we'd like. And let's say 16th dotted notes as well for one of these. And you can get some quite sort of nice, interesting rhythms out of that. You can see how those are all running independently from one another. Another cool thing that you can do when you're experimenting with this is lock the sequence, for example, or lock the kit. So when you hit the browser, we can play back that same sequence that we currently have, or the same kit that we have, but adjust the sequence. So essentially every single one of those presets, that sequence can be applied to every other preset just by doing this lock function over here. We'll lock the sequence now, for example. Cool, so there we have it. That is the drum module. We're going to take a look now at the synth modules, or the sampler modules as well. We'll start off by going to the old Emulator I. This one's going to have a lot of the sort of classic 80s sounds, although there is some other content sampled through these as well. For example, like the orchestral sounds. This is from UVI's orchestral library, but sampled through an Emulator I. So let's briefly look at some of the controls. These will apply to all of the sampler modules inside of Emulation II+. We've got some basic stuff for amplitude, amp envelopes. We've got a filter envelope. The filter can be high pass, low pass, and band pass. We've got some drive settings and envelope depth for this. You can also assign velocity and mod wheel to the filters as well. Turn off the filters too. We've got some voice controls here. We've got pitch, semitones as well. We can adjust this into mono retrigger, portamento, polyportamento as well. We've also got a classic unison mode and alternate, which will kind of give you a nice big stereo field. And of course, everything in true UVI fashion is impeccably sampled. It sounds fantastic. Let's take a look down at the bottom here. We've got a few modulation options. We've got vibrato. These can all be assigned to the wheel as well. Tremolo, vibrato, and the filter LFO. So pretty simple controls that we have there for these multi-sampled instruments. We've also got an effects section. We're looking at drive here. Redux, which is a digital bit crusher effect. We've got some chorusing. Phaser, EQ, we've got our reverb and delay. So when you're running these in a separate mode like this with just one emulator synth or sampler, you've got a single reverb and delay on hand. When we get to the multi-mode, you'll see you have the 4 sends that we have in the drum module as well. We've also got an arpeggiator mode. If we click edit, we'll kick into the arpeggiator, and this is pretty powerful as well. You can do phrases and arpeggiation as well. There's a lot that you have here. You can link these notes together. We've got velocity and control amounts here. We can vary the time signatures for these, quantize scales. We've got gate controls for these too, and repeats as well as panning. Let's take a listen to what we've done there. And of course, there's a bunch of presets for this as well. We can just quickly grab something. This is now the phrase mode. This one you can actually contrast scales as well, so we can adjust that to go to, let's say, harmonic minor, for example. Any of these as well, including the drum ones, you've always got MIDI drag as well. So if you don't want to do any of this programming in here, you can always just drag this out. You just record. And stop recording, and then we can drag the MIDI out into our project and remix it or use it as is from there. Let's take a look at quickly one or two. We'll jump ahead. We've got the Emulator II as well. There's some classic 80s iconic sounds in here as well. The arco strings, for example. And you can really hear that old school looping going on, which is done in the actual samplers themselves. Let's check out some of the Emulator III. These are kind of the more modern sounds. And you can see same controls, but just a different graphical interface, just to differentiate between the two. BCM layering as well. Right, so we're not going to turn this into too much of a demo video going through all the presets. There are hundreds and hundreds of sounds that you can select here, ranging from more modern stuff to the real old school vintage 80s sounds. I'm going to jump into the multi-mode now as well, so we can take a look at that. So this basically combines everything that we've looked at previously into one interface that you can kind of layer everything together. I actually contributed a few of these sounds as well, especially the stacked sounds. We can have a look here. So let's take a look at the stack sounds first. We'll grab something that I did, for example, like Fantasia. So this is utilizing 4 of the sampling modules. We've got the Emulator 2, the 3, and another 3 there. They're all layered together. This is a really nice patch. This is all the cinematic synths. So you can see in this case we've got the drums muted. We've got, again, 4 different layers of sampler patches here. You've got the global effects as well. Here are your send effects, and we've also got the preference, so you can set up splits for each of these instruments as well. Obviously along the top you have panning and volume controls, as well as solo and mutes that you can layer these together. So let's take a look at some of the ones, including the drum patches as well. There's a wealth of like pre-made groove stuff here. If you're trying to sort of create some sort of 80s inspired stuff, there's just a gold mine of stuff in here. The iconic stuff kind of recreates some of the old school classic 80s tracks. We'll look at Depeche Mode inspired one. A lot of these will also follow chords as well. You can often play chords in, depending on how they're set up. You'll notice as well that each of these, the bass, for example, if we go to edit, you are running the phrase mode there. Some of these will have the up, again, set to phrasal mode. And then some of these might have, depending on the instruments, might be playable as well in the upper registers. No explanation what that is. Let's dive through just a few of the other sounds as well. So they've gone from the sort of very iconic 80s stuff to more modern things as well. We'll go through modern pop. We'll grab 1 or 2 presets from here. I'll just play a few of these grooves. So this one I'm feeding in chords now. I want to take a look at the dark wave stuff. There's some really nice stuff in here as well. Let's check out Hawkins' Lab. And again, remember that you can export any of these out into MIDI parts as well. So if you wanted to, for instance, utilize some of the programming done in these, you can absolutely send that to another instrument as well. We will just bring up, let's say, for instance, UVI Workstation again. I'll grab a completely different library this time around. Let's go with the Jupiter 8. And so, for instance, we've got a Jupiter 8 bass line here. If we wanted to kind of utilize some of the grooves from Emulation II+, we can do that as well. We can grab our bass part here once again, click on Edit, Record. And we'll just take our MIDI, drag that out to our Jupiter part, and our bass line is maybe just needs to be adjusted as far as the octave is concerned. And we can actually sync those together now as well. Play that back. We can mute the bass from the Emulation II+ as well and have the Jupiter playing instead. And obviously that applies to the drums as well. So there's a lot that you can do here. Some great versatility as far as the sequences go, and creating these kind of very authentic 80s sounding grooves from this. We'll go through one or two more presets and leave it at that. Let's look at the experimental. Orchestral. Right, we're going to cut it there. So as you can see, they've got you covered for a ton of different styles, 80s stuff right through to sort of urban, experimental, dance stuff. You've got everything from synth sounds in here to sampled orchestral stuff, standard instruments, bass guitars, and so on. Huge library, 10 gigs in size, and you can pick this up now from UVI. It's a great little tool, especially if you're an 80s kid like me that has an appreciation for a lot of these kind of sounds. I absolutely love this. So if you are into this kind of thing, definitely go check this out. Big fan of UVI's instruments always. Anyways, thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will catch you soon right here at Sonic Academy. Cheers.
Thanks everyone for watching. We really appreciate all the support from you guys. If you love this video, then smash a like, and if you want to be notified about new videos, hit the subscribe and notification buttons. Peace!